found your way to this channel, you must be a lover of stories, of myths, and of legends. This is Solas Beatha, Scots Gaelic for light of life. Welcome, dear one. I'm Lily Christensen and sometimes go by the name Grandma May. Here at Solas Beatha, we return to the old paths, to stories shaped by firelight, carried through the centuries and remembered in the marrow of the bones. Welcome to my whispering series where I bring you to a magical place somewhere in nature. Read my own fantasy novel Beyond Trivar in a soft, soothing whisper, like a fae gently calling through the ages. So sit back in your most cozy, safe place, with your favorite blanket and maybe a nice warm drink, and let me inspire magical peace and rest while grand adventures play out in the mystical world of Trivar. When we last left Jaden and Zachariah, they were at a great feast where things were unsettled. Something was up, but according to Xavier, the premise was secure. And Xavier was going to show his father how grateful he was, and brought in these beautiful, ornate, ceramic platters. And with a flourish, said, "Open your gifts, Zenellian's finest." Canute and his nobles lifted their lids. Jeweled colors shone from the iridescent scaly bodies of irresistibly dazzling and mesmerizing creatures. Every noble exclaimed at the beauty before them, but Jaden gasped. Yellow eyes peered intently at the person in front of them, and before Zachariah could unsheath his sword, the baby dragons lunged at the necks of each noble, including Canute, who looked at Xavier with wild eyes as he tried to disengage the vicious creature. Xavier sat back in his seat smugly. He winked at Jaden, who gaped helplessly. Canute struggled for a short time and died without another word. Once the struggle ended, Xavier stood and gently, almost reverently, handled Canute's crown. "I would like to present myself as King of Zenellian," he said mockingly, understating the pride he clearly felt at the success of his coup d'etat. Everyone cheered except for Jaden and Zachariah as Xavier placed the crown on his own head. Xavier's nobles and servants bowed as he declared with relish, "Never look a dragon in the eye." His loyalist laughed, and he continued, "Perfectly executed. We will tell the people of Zenellian later, but right now it is time to eat." They cheered again. "Well, you know what to do." Xavier's servants detached the dragons from their prey and placed the deadly creatures under the lids of their platters. Xavier's earlier command now haunted Jaden. "Make a good impression on Canute," he had said. With death all around her, Jaden felt faint. Zachariah put his hand on hers and firmly squeezed. Because the noise around them covered his voice, he leaned close to Jaden and spoke clearly, confident that only she would hear. "I think Canute was up to something as well. Xavier just got to him first." The dead Zenellian nobles were hauled to the back of the room and loaded into wheelbarrows. "Place them in the dungeon." "The dragons have earned their dinner," Xavier ordered, and his servants carted them away. Some of his other servants draped tarps over the blood-stained tables and resumed meal preparations, as if nothing had happened. Xavier sat at the head of the tables and his nobles moved closer to him. After drinks were poured and sumptuous entrees were placed before them, Xavier rose once more, this time asking. All food was tested on Canote's servants, and we can eat what hasn't killed them. Let's feast. Xavier's men and women roared. Xavier sat down and madly tore off a bite of juicy rare meat with his teeth. He chewed for a moment and then spoke to Jaden. Finally, we are here where we always wanted to be. Beyond Trivar, Chapter 3, Caged. I hate this dress. This one won't do either. Pink looks awful with red hair. Zoe, these dresses are horrible. I can't wear any of them. Tell Xavier I need something fresher, more modern, if I am to look like the queen of Xenelian, and not just another courtier. And I am not just another courtier. Jaden flung her last dress at the door as her attendant Zoe quickly scuffled away. Jaden stormed to her balcony and thrust open the gold shutters, taking in the fresh air that blew in from over the jungle. Her eyes scanned the sky, and she wished that she could take Justine for a flight. But no, I must play the good queen today, she said to herself aloud. She retreated into her room, unimpressed with the lavishly ornate gold filigree that Xavier's craftsman had recently installed. She fingered the delicate, fanciful woodwork gilded in gold leaf that was laced around her entire room. The designs on the high arches of her ceiling interplayed with each other so intricately that it made her dizzy to follow their patterns. Jaden paced the room, waiting for Zoe to return. Although the room was actually quite spacious, Jaden felt cramped. Most likely because she spent most of her time in her room. She certainly never felt at home anywhere else in Xavier's stolen castle. The only other place Jaden preferred was with Justine, whether attending to her in the dungeon or flying upon her back over the surrounding jungle. The feeling of suffocation was what motivated Jaden to install more mirrors in her room. The mirrors made the room feel bigger, and Jaden bought into that illusion with relief. She stopped in front of one of her oversized mirrors, made of many sections that craftsmen had fitted with precision to the curved shape of the wall, from floor to ceiling. You're bored, Jaden. You need to find a better distraction than picking on poor Zoe, she thought. Jaden laughed and then looked at herself in the mirror. Not bad for an old queen, she said aloud, turning to the side and examining her thin midsection and curves. Zoe knocked and entered, carrying a flowing gold gown and a birdcage-like structure. My lady, here is the dress that Xavier commands you to wear. I told him you needed something new. How did he get it so quickly? Never mind. I don't want to know that this is another of Luana's cast-offs. I actually like it. But what is that thing? It goes around your waist and flares the skirt out at the bottom. It's the latest fashion. Xavier said he wants his women to be the first to wear them. Who would wear that awful cage? If you don't mind, I can help you, Zoe tentatively offered. After a long struggle, Jaden emerged from her room with a cage under the gold dress and her hair done up high atop her head. I can barely breathe, Zoe. How am I supposed to walk? Carefully, my lady, Zoe urged. Jaden turned too quickly to give her a harsh look, but instead compulsively cried out, "Ow, it pinches!" Zoe stifled a giggle and headed down to the maid's quarters. Jaden slowly made her way in the statues, without noticing any of it. At a window, Jaden paused and looked out, taking a moment to catch her breath. She took in the view of the huge city of Xenelian, with all of its stone and dust. She scanned the horizon longingly. Her gaze turned to the front of the castle. That hideous statue. Xavier is crazy. Xavier loved wrought iron and gathered the best smiths in the south of Trivar to work this iron until it looked like delicate lace. Wrought iron-framed windows and pictures was made into banisters for circular staircases and formed tables, chairs, and chandeliers. It was everywhere. Worst of all was the black wrought iron statue of Xavier at the front of his castle. "He has no taste, that's for certain," Jaden said, shaking her head disapprovingly. The sun rested heavily in the western sky, and she knew that if she did not keep moving, she would be late, and Xavier would be angry. "Not that he pays any attention to me once I am present," she mused to herself. With one last gaze at the sunset, Jaden took a shallow breath and marched on. "Mother, you do look spectacular." Jaden, fortunately, remembered to turn around slowly to avoid getting pinched. "A little stiff?" Zachariah asked. He was accompanied by 2 young ladies, one on each arm, who wore the same style of dress as Jaden. "This new fashion is an insult to women. Don't tease me, I am in no mood. You poor girls." Zachariah passed by his mother with his companions. "I'm not that bad," Zachariah smirked. "No, you aren't, but these dresses are." The girls smiled curtly. "Mother, content yourself. Tonight is going to be full of glorious food, elegant company, and entertainment that promises to amuse even you. Maybe there are benefits to Xavier's arrogant flaunting of our wealth and his paranoid obsession with declaring his statues to the world. It is probably a good thing that there are still a few rich but weak kingdoms for Xavier to rape, pillage, and plunder. Otherwise, he might become as bored as me, and then what worse diabolical plans might he pursue?" Jaden said. Zachariah leaned in close to Jaden. "If you have to be here, you may as well enjoy it. Just try." He kissed her cheek and waltzed off with the girls. Approaching the dance floor, Jaden thought the music sounded less like music and more like dying swans or angry elephants. The musicians came from a village south of Yamas, Xavier's latest conquest. Reed instruments blown loudly were underscored with primitive drums and large rattles, although 2 or 3 different flutes whistled an almost pleasant melody. The combination of sounds still reminded Jaden of raucous animals. She walked over to Xavier and sat in her ornate seat of satin, less able to breathe while sitting. "You call this fashion? I call it torture. Maybe it will keep you quiet tonight, my pleasant Jaden." Jaden ignored him and watched the young couples dancing around the band. The combination of harsh music and intoxicating drinks turned the party into a wild display of inhuman behavior. 2 women began catfighting in front of the royal couple. Xavier allowed it to go on, seeming to enjoy their bodies becoming more and more exposed, until Jaden realized he was going to do nothing and called for the guards to break it up. "Remove them from the castle immediately," she ordered. Xavier glared at her but said nothing. "Thank you for spending this time with me. May these stories bring you rest, wonder, and a sense of home, the kind that lives in the bones, remembers the old paths, and lingers long after the tail